Welcome back everybody, and today we are going to be showing you how to make pumpkin puree so that you can make things like pumpkin soup, which I will be doing in the next video. It's directly from my pumpkin here that I bought during Halloween last month. I will also be making a pumpkin pie with this. It has a little bit different texture and flavor than you might be used to from a store-bought pumpkin. Because it's not a small sweet pumpkin, it's just a regular pumpkin. It still tastes great, and I use it anyways because I don't want to waste it. So the first thing we're going to do is I went ahead and I lined a cookie sheet here that has a rim over it. That way, when any of the liquid from the baking comes out, you have a little bit of area there for it to catch. So, also, as it bakes, some of the liquid obviously is going to come out, and when that happens, it'll also start burning on your pan. So this kind of helps protect your pan. Not that this is the nicest pan that I have. It's the crummiest pan I have, which is why I'm using it. And also, once that starts baking on there, it makes it easier for cleaning. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to cut this pumpkin directly down the middle, and we're going to have two halves. From there, I might make it into more, but that's where we're going to start. So the first thing I'm going to do is try to get rid of the stem. I went ahead and cut out the stem. You can use a knife or a pumpkin tool if you have. I am going to cut this in half, and I'm also going to save a lot of my seeds so that I can roast them and feed them to my birds or just eat them. Takes a couple tries. Don't try to get it all cut with one shot. There we go. Pull it apart. You see all this stuff inside here. We're going to go ahead and carefully cut out the bottom because that's not something we want. This one doesn't look too bad, so I'm going to go ahead and clean this out, and I'll be right back. Now that I have my pumpkin all cleaned out, you want to try to get as many of those little strings that you see in there out of there because they'll probably burn if you don't. So I cleaned it out. The outside's all washed. I'm going to go ahead and place it on my tin foil upside down. And then you want to preheat your oven to 350 degrees. Once the oven is ready, we'll go ahead and put these in the oven, and it can cook between 1 to 2 hours depending on the thickness and the size of your pumpkin. Once that's finished, you'll know right away. You'll be able to stick a knife through it easily. You can also cut these into chunks and boil it, but I found that that absorbs way too much water, and you don't want to get rid of the nutrients that are in there from boiling. You might be able to try steaming it or using a slow cooker, but I just do it in the oven. So cut them, get the oven to 350, and then we'll start baking them, and I'll let you know how long it took to bake them. Also, I went ahead and cleaned all the pumpkin seeds. So I cleaned them out, and I'm going to set them on a cookie sheet here and let them dry out. They will cook at 300 degrees, so when my pumpkin is finished, I will just lower the temperature down and then finish this off, and then we'll have pumpkin seeds to eat as well. Our oven has preheated to 350 degrees, and now we're going to go ahead and put our pumpkin in there. I'm going to use the middle rack so that the pumpkin isn't too close to the top or the bottom. I also have my seeds spread out so they can start drying. I'll leave them out for as long as I need to until they look really dry, and then I'll go ahead and season them the way that I like them and get them ready to be baked in the oven as soon as the pumpkin is done. Our pumpkin cooked for about an hour, and it is looking pretty good. So let's test it out and see. As you can see, it's kind of bubbling up a little bit along the tops there, which means the skin is pulling away from the pulp. You go ahead and put a knife in it, it goes in gently, then you know it's ready. Initially might be a little bit of a stiffness there from the exterior of the pumpkin, but it slides through wonderfully. So we're ready to pull that out of the oven. Carefully, hopefully using some really heat resistant gloves. And we're going to go ahead and set it on our counter to cool off. Look at that. It's just kind of neat. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to season our pumpkin seeds. I'm going to do some olive oil and sea salt in part of them, and in the other part I'm going to do a barbecue. So I'm going to go ahead and lower the oven down to 300 degrees while I'm doing that, and then I'll put them in there and we'll bake them until they're ready. Just kidding. Anyways, I'm going to let the pumpkin cool on the counter thoroughly before I put it in a food processor, or you use a smasher like you would use on like mashed potatoes, because it's very, very hot and you have to be careful with things like this. So as soon as that cools off, give it a couple hours, whatever you need for it to be thoroughly cooled off before you put it in your food processor, and then we'll also strain it to get rid of most of the water. Now we're going to go ahead. I have 2 separate bowls, half and half of the pumpkin seeds. I did go ahead and put them in the oven for about 10 minutes while the pumpkin was cooking, just to dry them off so they weren't wet anymore. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of olive oil from Trader Giotto's, my favorite store. Just a little bit of olive oil on these. Working the olive oil into the seeds. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of garlic powder, probably about a teaspoon's worth. I'm going to work that in. If you have garlic salt, go ahead and use garlic salt. I don't carry garlic salt in my pantry, so I'm just going to put a little bit of sea salt on that. And those are ready. It smells so good. I love it. Okay. With these pumpkin seeds, we're going to make a bit of a barbecue. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of water in here. Kind of defeating the purpose of drying the seeds out, but that's okay. And then I'm going to add a little bit. Let's just do this. Probably 1/4 of a teaspoon of cumin. And I have a little tiny spoon here for the chili powder. Just put a little bit of that in there. It's my cute doggy one. Isn't that cute? It goes in there like that. Stirring that around just a little bit like that. And then we're going to add some brown sugar. And let's just do 1 teaspoon of brown sugar. And then we'll work this all in together. Now they're ready to spread out onto our sheet and go into the oven. So let's bring our sheet over here. Don't waste any. I'm going to just make sure these are spread out nice and evenly, hopefully not overlapping as much as possible. We will be turning these halfway through the cooking process as best we can. And then with my other hand, because I don't want to mix flavors here, I'm going to spread out olive oil, sea salt, and garlic ones, which is my favorite. These are full of potassium. So, in case you needed a little bit of potassium in your life. Now we're ready to stick them in the oven. I'm going to go ahead and stick this a little bit closer to the top. Just by one. Put these in here. 300 degrees for 10 minutes. And at 10 minutes, we're going to go ahead and turn them over as much as possible and cook them again for another 10 minutes. Okay, viewers, this is not going to be pretty, but here we go. It's been 10 minutes. We're going to go ahead and attempt. I'm going to use a nice stiff spatula here to just kind of scoop them up, pretend like I'm flipping them. No cross-contamination. No, get away from my garlic. These are drying out faster because we only had water on them, whereas these had the oil. So these are a bit sticky from the sugar too, as you can see, so it's a little bit easier actually to fold these onto themselves. I'll just re-spread them out a bit. Hours later. Okay, there we go. We're all set. 10 more minutes and we'll check them out. We are back and let's see how our pumpkin seeds are looking. Looks pretty good. Well, and these are pretty sticky, but they're dry, and that's a good thing. You want to make sure they're dry. So let's take one of each out. We're going to go ahead and try them. They should be pretty stiff on the outside and crunchy when you go to taste them. I'm going to taste the barbecue one first. Cracks open easily. That's a good sign. You can eat the shell. I just don't typically because it's pretty sharp. Here's more. Pretty good. I like it. Now let's try the olive oil, sea salt, and garlic powder. This one's my favorite. I like the flavor on this one. Really good garlicky taste in there. Garlic is so healthy for you too, especially with cold and flu season, because it really helps boost your immunities. And this is a recipe obviously because it's Halloween and fall, and we have pumpkins that we can buy in the stores. That it's a good time to make recipes like this because you're going to have your oven on for a while, so you don't have to run the heater in your house because it already is going to warm things up. You wouldn't want to bake something like this in the summer because it would just be too hot to have your oven on for that long. We'll stick to salads and fruit during the summer. So anyways, our pumpkin seeds cooked for a total of about 25 minutes. You want to get them to where they're pretty easy to crack open in your mouth. If they're still soft and not crunchy, then they're not quite done, and pop them back in the oven for a few extra minutes until you get a nice crispy but not over crispy texture when you go to crack them. We are going to let our pumpkins continue to cool, and then we'll come back with the food processor portion of it. I am back, and I just had an incredible workout at CrossFit. I brushed my hair though, and I wiped the sweat off, so hopefully I don't look horrible. Anyways, what we're going to do now is we're going to start peeling the outer layers of the pumpkin off. As you can see here, it's already started pulling off because it was bubbled up. So we're going to go ahead and peel all this off. I'm just going to use a knife and really just grab an edge and just start peeling and cutting. It smells really good. Let's leave this all in there. This makes a lot of puree, so I just go ahead and stick the extra in baggies and put them in the freezer. So whenever I want to make something with pumpkin puree, I've got it. I filled my food processor up with as many pieces as I could get in there. I also chopped up all of them into little squares. I'm going to go ahead and puree this and then stick it in a bowl, and then puree some more and stick that in a bowl. So here we go. I pureed it for about 2 or 3 minutes. Going in between a low and high speed to make sure that I got all of the little chunks in there. You want it really creamy and smooth. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this in a bowl. Looks like baby food. So as you can see, it's really nice and creamy, has a beautiful color, it's smooth. Want a nice consistency like that. And we'll just keep going until we pureed all of it. But as you can see, that's probably 2 or 3 cans worth from the grocery store of just pure pumpkin. And this is all organic, so it is a good deal if you have the time to do that. Now that we pureed all of our pumpkin, we're going to strain it for a little bit because we don't want all the water that you can see along here. We don't want that in there. We want it to be a little more dense. So we're going to strain it for maybe an hour or so. And what I have here is straight out of Home Depot. It's for mixing paint, and I use it a lot for making almond milk and coconut milks and stuff like that. You may also use cheesecloth, which I also have here. We're going to try this first. I went ahead and put a rubber band around here and secured it with clips just for extra precaution. And I'm going to slowly pour some of this in here and hope that it makes its way through. So what I'm going to do is get as much on here as I can, and then just sort of move this around like this. This one's not super watery. As you can see, it's pretty thick. It's not coming off of this spoon that easily, so we might be okay to not have it rest. Just doing this, maybe getting some of the water off, and then we'll see. Oh yeah, there's plenty of water coming through there. So what you can do is you can do this in batches. You can just either keep doing this to get some of the water, or you can just let it sit, coming back to it every 10-15 minutes and scraping it around like this until you get the majority of the water. And then put this into baggies so you can store it in the freezer. We're also going to be making a pumpkin pie and some pumpkin soup with it, so we're going to leave some of it out. I have let this sit. I can hear the water dripping. I have let this sit in the freezer for a good year, and it was still good. So that's a good thing. A lot of water coming through here. So I'm going to let this sit for about 10 minutes to get the quick water off of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick this in a baggie and do my next batch. Okay, so I let this sit for about 20 minutes. You can let it sit longer depending on how you want it. You don't even have to do this process at all. You can completely skip this, which I've done plenty of times. And I still had a lot of success with all my pumpkin pies and pumpkin soup that I've made. So if you want to skip this process, you're welcome to do that. I just wanted to bring out some of the water. Personally, it was something I just wanted to try doing. I'm going to show you, I have a Ziploc bag here. It's a freezer Ziploc bag. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out on my scale here. I want to measure out 15 ounces so I know exactly how much is in these bags and I can mark it. So I'm going to measure out 15 ounces, which is the amount you would need to make one pumpkin pie. Over just a little bit. Get that out. And that's perfect right there. So now what we can do is we'll mark with a Sharpie on the outside of the bag. Right here in this little section, I'll put the date, and then I'll put 15 ounces underneath it, which is the amount a pumpkin pie requires to make a pie. And if you can get smaller bags, that's great, because this is kind of a waste. Or you can put extra in there and just label it if you want to make several pies. Or if you don't want to make a pie and some pancakes with it, or a pie and some muffins, or pie and some soup. You have extra in each bag, or just get smaller freezer bags, which I typically do, but I ran out of, so I'm just using the bigger ones right now. So anyways, I have my bag marked for the date 12/9/16, and I put 15 ounces there. The way that I do this is I seal it up to the very edge, and I take my cute little straw with my little mouse on it, and I put it here in the edge, and I close this all the way up to there, and then I suck all the air out. When I get to the point where I feel like most of it's sucked out, I pull out the straw as I slowly clamp this part shut. And there you have your next pumpkin pie, soup, pancakes, muffins, bread, whatever it is that you want to make. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video and that you have success with it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe for future videos, and we'll see you next time.